says he needs a passcode. Oz?
No.
This is probably what he means.
Hey, welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Purella.
And Oz is spinning on the ones and twos. Hope you're having a great Friday, everybody. Don't worry, the weekend's almost here. I don't know, some of you might have the weekend off. Some of you might have the whole week off. Who knows what's going on, but hopefully you have a good one. We got a good show for you today. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Fam, wow. I don't know. The energy for me lately, I don't know. Because you heard me say today, like, and you're like, what's wrong? And you asked the other day, is Mercury in retrograde, or right? Is that the whole, slogan? The actual science, Mercury retrograde? Maybe you can explain a little bit more, but things seem so off. Things seem weird. I don't know. The stakes seem high. Maybe it's just me, but everything we're seeing played out right for us, in front of us, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. Touching emotions, stakes are risen. I don't know. Maybe it's some of the stuff we've been seeing. The other day, we opened up a story in AM Wake Up which said 50% of college students have some form of mental illness. And I think about what's going on with this whole food situation with the fertilizers, and Jeremy Lafredo and his story about, these big, entities. The FDA is being a part of making sure the smaller pharma closes down. We're seeing all these protests all over the place. I mean, they're trying to take control of our food, for crying out loud. So I don't mean to be an alarmist of sorts, but from all the discussions, well, what's China's part? What's Russia's part? Where you're at, where I'm at, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it's maybe it's just like our guest said this morning. Well, you shouldn't freak out. It's just one part in the whole situation. Fam, I don't know. Please say something, because
Okay. Pasta, I'm sorry. I need to deal with this situation right now.
no, I had I don't even know what to say. That was, you guys suck. I hate the both of you. Oz and Faith. See what I'm dealing with, ladies and gentlemen? Today we will talk about the Rogan Zuckerberg thing on the show today. Obviously, we had some conversations this morning on the AM Wake Up about it, and I think it's just interesting because there's a lot to talk about. I believe a lot of times what we see on a micro scale from some of the people who might be in the public eye are what we're dealing with in a macro scale as humans, and it's just, I mean, I know we're going to talk about this also, this crumb fam of student forgiveness that was given, this crumb, this little morsel, of whatever, and how it's being perceived. The fact that the press secretary can't even answer where the funding mechanism is going to come from, and just trying to use that kind of like bullshit language. They're still trying to sell that whole thing. Thank you, William Wallace. I will hang in there. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, Lawrence Johnson. Do you guys done? Can we start the freaking show now?
No. Well, I just wanted to say that I think this was a very chaotic time, and that there's a lot of things out there that are happening and that are making people very crazy. Not crazy, but just like not knowing what to think at this point, because there's so many theories. And I know Pops and I have two disagreements here. We're going to have disagreements maybe on the student debt, although I don't know. Maybe on the economics of the student debt stuff. And then on the Joe Rogan thing, I told you I agree with Steve largely on that issue, but not necessarily in the same, I don't know how to say it, in the same intensity. So we're going to have a good discussion on that. You guys, because Pasta and I, we agree a lot, but we disagree on some things. And you guys will see there was a very heated argument between Pasta and Steve earlier today. So now you'll see my point of view on this whole issue and situation. I always go with follow the money. And if the money is something that is suspect, then I have a reason to be suspect. I don't go for, oh my God, there's a picture of a person next to somebody, especially if they're like a diplomat or somebody that is in those circles, because a picture doesn't mean anything. I mean, there's a picture of me next to AOC. Does that mean I'm like, some sort of crazy?
Me and AOC. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just, first of all, Do we have anything from the peanut gallery? You got anything over to say there, pal? In the wings? Oz, with your overalls, anything to add to the conversation? Because you don't get involved with these conversations enough. Nothing? That just sucks.
No, I'm on Team Fee, so don't even try, Pasta.
What do you mean you're on Team Fee?
Because she's right.
About what?
99% of everything. Your guest is coming in, by the way.
Yeah, they're saying they have a black screen and they keep having issues with Zoom. So you know what? We might have to reschedule it to when we have a StreamYard situation, because I don't know why some people have issues.
Because Zoom is owned by the Chinese and they're stealing your data, sending it straight to Beijing. The next thing you'll know, you'll be on a social credit score. I know this. I saw Russell Brand next to a globalist. He's there to escort you into the dark side.
Okay.
Yes, you need to watch AM Wake Up. You need to watch Rumble and see Fee on the news desk. No, I mean, dude, last night, I got to tell you, I was here. I cut up some Whitney clips. We've put 2 of them out there, guys. If you haven't seen them yet, please go. It gives you the link to the actual interview. We had some really juicy stuff in that thing. I did some extra work here last night and I got home and I was tired, but I mean, not just because my business partner and co-host is on RT did I watch it. I just love some of the work sometimes. The interview with Imran Khan was so much fire. It really was. I loved it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm very excited for the man who got the chance to do the interview, to get to talk to a world leader, an ex-prime minister. Possibly, yeah, who can possibly be the new prime minister. So I thought it was amazing. And some of this
was a good interview.
Yeah. I mean, the Idaho State House of Representative person says they're going to change things at the ballot box.
You think you can change things at the ballot box, don't you? Just you think?
Oh, so did that lady from the Idaho State Representative?
Yeah, but she's part of the establishment. She's part of the House of Representatives. She's a Republican. I mean, I expect her to think that. She was right about all the COVID stuff, but I mean, I expect her to think that. But I don't expect you to think that. You know our elections aren't fair. I don't understand how you can go and say, well, maybe I'll vote Libertarian. And
you know why? You know why? I believe in participating in the process and creating much evidence as possible so that we can hopefully.
They don't give a crap about your evidence. They don't give a crap about your evidence.
When the people care. When the people care, then we can do it. When all the people realize that it's a sham, then we can do it. What did we say? Well, we were at January 6th and stuff, despite all the bullshit that went on. We're like, why wasn't this the progressives doing this and saying this is wrong, the elections? Because we mustn't forget what J6 was about. About election, it was stop the steal, right? That's what it was about. It was about trying to get some accountability in our fucking elections because they believed it was, stolen. DHS says it was the safest, most fairest election of all time. Disclaimer, just putting both points out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, some of us believe in the tactic of participating in the process that we believe is if it's fixed and if it's right and we get representative government, then we can make some changes. I feel strongly about that, but I don't hold it against you or Steve, who wants to freaking chain the doors shut. I don't hold it against I understand.
I don't think
point.
this, you think this place can be salvaged through the electorate? Like, I mean, you think you can fix reform?
I believe the only way to national sovereignty through the will of the people is through free, fair, and transparent elections. You know who else believes that? Imran Khan. He said it yesterday to end his interview. What's the message?
You live in the United States. You live in the United States of America. You don't live in Pakistan. People there are aware of what's been done to them. People here in the United States aren't, and it's going to take a really long time. And by that time, we're not going to have anything. The United States is falling apart, and people are so consumed and distracted that they don't even care. Like they'll continue. They're going to vote for Joe Biden. Some of these progressives already because of this $10,000 thing. And that's what we're going to talk about now, because our guest is going to have to be rescheduled because he can't get through Zoom. So, guys, we're going to eventually have George Ellison on because he's a great independent journalist that's in the Lugansk area. Well, in the area where there's so much going on, and very great, a lot of work, a lot of really great work. And so I really want to have him on, but it's just the internet situation, whatever the hell it is, isn't there. But we are going to talk about some things right now. And before Costa and I get carried away on this debate, we're going to start with this one. So Biden gave some crumbs to people. Now, let me first of all say, is this going to help some people? Yes, it's going to absolutely help some people. I know some people who will be helped by this. But it's also going to put a dent it's basically just going, for most people, it's going into a dent on the interest, the accrued interest rate, which is a huge problem, which, by the way, Biden doesn't really mention at all in this entire thing. I read the whole thing. I will spare you the reading, but Biden doesn't really mention any of this stuff of the accrued interest rate. If we stop the interest rate and what that's done, because, for example, if you borrow $20,000, 10 years ago, you basically owe double that. And that's what keeps happening. That's never addressed. And so let's just go over what it actually does, right? So Biden is to cancel $10,000 in student debt for low-income students. They're eligible for more. And this, of course, has been the back and forth between, Democrats, centrists, and progressives who wanted more. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren were asking, I think, for 50,000. Obviously Bernie had wanted everything. And so the Republicans always come with, this is going to increase inflation. The taxpayers will bear the brunt of this. So this was announced on Wednesday, and it's only for those earning under $125,000 per year. So if you make more than that, you don't qualify for that. And $20,000, of course, for those who receive Pell Grants for low-income families. So Pell Grants are the reason. So Pell Grants you don't ever pay back. A grant is not a loan. A grant is what's given to you. In order to qualify for a Pell Grant, your family had to come from a family that wasn't making very much at all. And a lot of middle-class people didn't qualify for that. That is one of my main issues with the way the system is set up. You have to be very, very poor to get anything. And so what ends up happening is the middle class that isn't rich enough to not use loans, but isn't poor enough to qualify for Pell Grants, ends up having to pay so much more in loans, ends up having to get more loans. Because at the end of the day, these are capitalist terms. Like, the poor class and the middle class, everybody is a worker. Everybody that isn't working, that is working for a living, that works for somebody else, is a working class person. But in those terms, when we talk about middle class, we talk about, if the families make, say, if it's a parent of two, they make, let's say at this point, they make, over $100,000 or so. That's not a lot of money when you have kids and when you have a mortgage and when you have all of these things. And so a lot of people on the left don't ever talk about that. They talk about it as if that's like those people don't count. At the end of the day, there really is no middle class anymore in this country because of that. So so you can go on to the next slide. Pazza, did you have anything to say so far?
No, keep going, because I'm taking notes. It's, we'll talk about it at the end, because I think this is more of a macro conversation, you know what I'm saying, than a micro.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up now because it just disappeared.
Everybody, please share out there, guys. Rokfin, share. YouTube, share. Do it all. Okay,
so it's the next one, whatever was the next one. So 9. Okay, so Biden said, and this is what Biden said, and we have a video for you. So he said, all of this means people can finally start to climb out from under that mountain of debt. This is what Biden said in remarks from the White House, to finally think about buying a home or starting a family or starting a business. And by the way, when this happens, the whole economy is better. Yeah, if you actually forgave all of it,
the wealthy do.
If you actually forgave all of it, that would I don't know who can buy a home with $10,000 right now. Like that's I mean, it's fucking ridiculous to say that. And by the way, we're gonna go over it, but basically what it is they're extending the student debt repayment You don't have to pay anything until January of next year. But then you have to make your payments on time, and you have to wait until they make this application form, which we know is going to have a lot of loopholes. And then eventually that will be deducted. That doesn't mean that it's all going to go away immediately. You have to go through the hoops of applying, and you know how that is. Anything government related is insanity. All right, so let's just hear what our Uncle Joe had to say.
I ran for office to grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. Because when we do that, everybody does better. Everybody does well. The wealthy do very well, the poor have a way up, and the middle class can have breathing room. And that's going to help America win the economic competition of the 21st century, because how do we remain the most competitive nation in the world with the strongest economy in the world, with the greatest opportunities in the world? That's what today's announcement is about. It's about opportunity. It's about giving people a fair shot. It's about the one word America can be defined by: possibilities. I ran for office to grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out.
Oh, please.
Because when we do that, everybody does better.
Stop him.
Everybody
Stop
does
him.
well. The wealthy
Oz.
do very well.
Oz.
Wait, I wanted to hear Joe. What the hell is wrong with you?
It's repeating.
I know.
It's repeating. I don't need to hear his freaking from the bottom up to the middle out and stuff from a dickhead guy who went out and, everything that crushed the middle class, everything that made people poor, everything that sent people on the streets and had so much homelessness, which came from Joe Biden. He was one of the architects of this thing. NAFTA went around there campaigning about that, killed the middle class and all the help me out with the factories. When he sent it over to NAFTA, all that, the bankruptcy bills, manufacturing. He killed me. I'm so sorry. He killed me. He was part of killing manufacturing. Sent it over to China for cheap labor. We know that he was a big part of that. The bankruptcy bill made it easier, right, for credit card companies to collect money from poor people, whatnot. This guy can go on and on and on. The crime bill, which what it did to the poor was ridiculous. The sentences it gave, the fact that it took away programs from people inside of jail, so when they can get out, they can try to find a job to stay back out of that pipeline back in. This guy has been the worst, and he gets to just stand up there and act like he's a champion for the poor people. And all these donkeys with their little charts, and they go on their show, and the Katie Porters and the Rokanas just get behind my guy. This is better than anything that Donald Trump did. No, this guy was the reason why people are poor and in jail and on the streets in the first place, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, well, with the bankruptcy bill, too, he was the one that made it impossible to include student loans in Chapter 7 when you file for bankruptcy. So
exactly.
I was going to mention that.
That debt would not go away. It will exist no matter what because of that bill.
Yeah. Right. So, okay. So, again, this is directly from the whitehouse.gov page. If it's a couple $250,000 or less, you qualify for this. So no high individual right will benefit from this, because that's going to be the other argument. No rich people benefiting. Well, they wouldn't need to anyway, guys. So that's like a dumb argument. They're supposed to cut the monthly payments in half. Basically, before, people were forced to pay like $500, $300 of their loan based on the amount they made. Well, now they're reducing that, even if they make whatever they make, right? Whatever is in their annual salary bracket, it's being reduced. So they will have to pay less a month. So there's that. And they're trying to make it easier for people who have worked in only these sectors, the nonprofit, military, federal, state, tribal, or local government, to receive full loan forgiveness. That's already been under play. That's already been happening. But I guess the process is a nightmare, which they're just basically telling you we're going to make it better, but they're not really specifying exactly how they're going to make it better. So this is what they put out as an example, slide 15. A typical nurse making $77,000 a year who is married with 2 kids would pay only $61 a month on their undergraduate loans, compared to the $295 they pay now under the most recent income-driven repayments plan, for annual savings of more than $2,800. And you guys can see the chart there. just a story. I have a friend who's a nurse, and she's about $130,000 in debt from school. Just and obviously a master's is included in that as well. But that's with working and doing. That is how much now things are costing. So all of this data of like, how people are in debt, that was before. Now it's even worse. And so in order to qualify for this, you had to have filed for a loan by July 2022. It was July something 2022. I think it was first or something like that. If you filed it by then, you can claim the $10,000. You can't go out right now and get a loan and say, hey, this loan's going to be free. You can't do that, which kind of sucks for people that were trying not to get loans and then this comes out. Well,
there's going to be a same argument for those people in the background who say, well, I paid off my debt.
They just paid off their debt.
Exactly. Yeah. There's going to be that argument there. And I know a lot of leftists hate that argument from the conservatives.
I hate that argument too, because it's not empathetic. But at the same time, I think if people did pay off their loan, maybe like you said, there could be some sort of like deduction on something else.
Absolutely.
If they're not making a lot of money, there should be because if you're making a ton of money and you're just like, oh, I paid off my loan, then I mean, obviously you're going to pay off your loan if you made a lot of money. Obviously.
They could do the same thing for those who need it, making under $125,000 a year or something like that,
Yeah, but I get it, and I see like how you can bring more people in with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, for me, the argument is like, why would you want others to suffer just because you?
I don't think it's that they want others to suffer, and I don't know if this is the proper time for this conversation. I can hold it until you get through this, but is it okay if I say something? I mean,
yeah.
Because I don't know if it's. I just think it's that. I think the majority of people who have paid off their loans still haven't made a ton of money and it might still be struggling, but they want to get that off their shoulders and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that's for the majority of those people. I think they just need the opportunity to as well. $10,000 would go a long way to help them out right now. And there should be something for those people who did, pay those. I mean, once again, we talk about paying into a capitalist system for an overpriced fucking education. That's not going to even help you anyways, which is something we're not even talking about right now, right? Like,
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I don't think it's always like that, but I still think like it's that sentiment that I don't like, where it's just like, oh, well, I did this, so now you have to do it. Like, it's just, but you're right. Like, they may be struggling because you're right. A lot of those people that do, pay their loans aren't necessarily making a lot of money, which is why the anger, right? Which is why like well, I did it and it sucks that now somebody else is going to get this and not, I get it. But, it's like, I think I have an issue with that, the sentiment, but logically I wouldn't be against somebody getting some sort of money back for what they paid already. But then again, and then you add into the issue of reparations, right? Because it's like, well, if they get this money back, then shouldn't the people that have been exploited and have decades and decades of this whole situation, which by the way, we still need to do the reparations panel, Pasta.
I know, but some of the big names have not returned.
Too?
Yeah. Well, reparations is an economic issue. It's for work that hasn't been, it's for unpaid work, right? You know what I'm saying? So reparations can be looked at in different ways. So we have to determine who gets reparations. I believe for their reparations should be paid for American descendants of slaves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Regardless of what they look for. And that's the way you sell that as an economic issue. Like, hey, we can give all this money to Israel. We can give all this money to other countries. Why don't we give the money to the people who built this country and set that straight first? You know what I'm saying? And if it's sold that way versus it's sold for one of America's greatest sins, you know what I'm saying, as far as slavery and whatnot, which will be controversial because people today will go, a white person today will go, I had nothing to do with them back then. They might be my ancestors. But then that whole argument comes into play. But if you sell it like economically, then it's done. And I don't want to drift too far off that, but it does have the same mentality too.
Right.
We're talking about student loan because we're talking about how it is sold, how it is framed, how it is marketed,
right,
how it plays out. So that is very important. I don't hold against those conservatives that say, hey man, I paid off my loans. Now what do I get? Is this fair? You know what I'm saying? I understand where they're coming from. Kim Iverson is wrong.
and I get it, and your logic, and it's a very logical way to look at it. And I agree with you. Like, if you look at it that way, it's a hard for anybody to deny it. But I also get the other aspect as to why does everybody have to kind of placate to the feelings of somebody not feeling like singled out or feeling like, oh, I'm not getting this or that. Like, I understand why people don't always respond to that, especially Black Americans, where they're like, well, why can't we even say the word race without people getting touchy about it? You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, I get it. It's all of this is an economic situation. We have been pitted against each other for crumbs. And that's what's happening right now. That's what we're seeing. But I get the feeling of like, I always have to placate to making sure that they understand it in a way that doesn't make them feel a certain way. And it's just like, I can see how that gets tiring at the same time. So, but the logical aspect to get it through is to focus it on economics, because at the end of the day, the United States is still a very, conservative country. There's a lot of miseducation. There's a lot of still a lot of issues with systemic racism. There's a lot of issues with just this divide that we have been created, because the United States was, of course, created on slavery. It was created on imperialism. So you can't deny that. That can't be denied. I think to a certain point, you can focus on economics, but people still have to recognize what is and what this country is doing and where it comes from and what it is, or they're never going to be able to make like some sort of allyship. And I think that going forward, people need to understand like all people want is some recognition, and things have definitely changed now. Everybody is pretty much under the boot now compared to before, where there was more distinctions just on race. And now it's like, well, everybody's screwed too. But that doesn't, change the fact that other people have always been screwed, I think. And that's that.
We can spin this off this so we can have conversations here. So you should have just jumped on the morning show for having conversations like this, fam, because, and I don't want to talk about that right now. I think we'll save that for the reparations panel about, systemic racism and how it affects what's going on today, and not acknowledging it so we understand how we move in the future too as well. Let's leave that one aside. As far as this is concerned, when it comes to this student bill that it's passed, I want to say for the record, even if it is a bill that is just taking care of people who still have debt and not acknowledging the people who've already paid off their bills, I would still want it to happen. Because I still think if we're still helping poor people in any way, shape, or form, or people who need it most, we should do so. And I'm like, okay, I'm happy about that. But we know that I think it should have been sold on everybody included. People who even just paid off those student loans. It should have been sold that way. It should have been written that way. The problems with the way it's written today now is, number one, it's divisive, because we are having these conversations right now about, the people who are complaining about it and the people who think it's great and lifting it up to something that's bigger than it is. But it's also another problem too, because we know the way they do things economically, it's going to be a fugazi bunch of bullshit, right? If they're going to take from another area to pay for this area over here, you know what I'm saying? Then it's not going, if it's something of need that they're pulling from, it's not what we always envision as far as like allocation of tax dollars. We want to stop spending so much money on useless fucking wars and going crazy and spend that money at home. Spend it on education. Spend it on healthcare. We understand that. And that's why when we see a bill like this, a lot of leftists can get duped and go, okay, look, they're not going to spend so much money on war. They'll spend a little bit more money over here. But we know that's not the truth. More than likely, they'll pull it from another area of need, whether it be infrastructure, healthcare, whatever, to use it to pay over there. At the end of the day, the people holding the loans, getting the checks, they're the ones who are going to make out no matter what. Because A, it's not going to really help anything, $10,000, which is Ugats, fam. That's Shangad. It's not enough shkadol. You know what I'm saying? So that's a problem anyways. Number two, they can't even tell you how they are funding it. They can't even answer the question. And this is a fair question from the libertarians. How are you going to pay for it? Just tell us how you're going to do it. The secretary can't even do it.
It's not a fair question, because then how are you going to, like, We've been paying for wars forever. We pay for whatever the hell they want us to
So
pay
then
for.
just say that
They
we're going
make
to
up
print more money to pay for it.
They
Yeah,
make-
but then say that. Yeah.
But that's what's happening. But so the selective outrage, not from the libertarians as much, from the right, on this one issue. Both sides are making this issue bigger than what it is. The liberals are making it way better than what it is, and the Republicans are making it way more like tragic than what it is. It is a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend on war. So I don't want to hear how we're going to pay for it over this fucking issue, because it's like, it is barely anything. It is breadcrumbs. It is breadcrumbs. It is absolute breadcrumbs for people. So I just want to go over some tweets real quick as to what people's different reactions were. And I think we're going to have a lot to say about some of these. Okay, so JB Flaunt said, funny how Biden will send billions to Nazis in Ukraine, but won't cancel all the student loan debt for students from HBCUs like he promised. Makes you wonder where his priorities are. And the reason he mentions HBCUs is because the average Black or man or woman have way more student debt than the average white person. And that is statistically proven. I don't have the stat, but that is a stat. So that's why he's saying that Biden had initially ran on doing that, and he didn't do it. And he didn't do it because, again, he didn't want to divide and oppose other people that were going to criticize him and say, well, what about for white people? And this is why you don't make those promises. This is why you have to have reparations or something else separate, and then do a loan forgiveness for everybody, because you can't do that, because then you're just going to have this divisive liberal and conservative thing all the time. Because when it comes to race and when it comes to handouts, that's what it's always going to be. Angie said Joe Biden can cancel all student loan debt just as easily as he can send $400 million to Ukraine every day. We have sent $10.9 billion nearly in total to Ukraine already. Just a reminder to everybody. The student loan system was not broken as Biden claims. It was working as designed by the Bidens of the world. A predatory system meant to saddle generations in unresolvable debt. This plan is not a fix and does little to help those most damaged by the system. I agree 100% with that take. It is absolutely, Biden is the architect of the system. You can't expect the architect of the system to solve the problem. This is a band-aid solution. It's going to do very little, as Pasta said. Am I against it happening? No, because at the end of the day, and I feel the same way about healthcare for all and about any other sort of government-funded thing at this point, the government is falling apart anyway. Everything is collapsing. So if people have an easier time surviving that fall while it collapses, okay. But don't forget that that it's not going to stop it from falling. This isn't going to really help solve this problem, because the problem is the government. It's a poor managed government. It's not working. It's systemic. You can't just say we're just going to do even all of it, even forgiving all of student loans, which I would love, would only be a temporary solution because of the way the system is set up. And that is something that people need to get through their heads. It is poor people aren't the problem. It is a poorly managed government right now. That is the problem.
Yeah. And I see you brought this guy to piss me off.
You want to read him? He's your guy.
No, I don't want to read this son of a beeswax mother. This guy is my number one enemy right now, guys. This is my number one.
For other reasons, I'm sure. But this is what I have an issue with DeSantis, because I was talking to some Russians here and they're like, oh, everybody sucks. It seems like DeSantis is like the guy. I'm like, no. DeSantis is just another, like, he's worse than Trump, I think. I say that like
Why?
I'm not a fan of Trump, but like, huh?
Why do you think he's worse than Trump?
Because I think he's actually more in line with the establishment than Trump was.
I think so too.
Yeah, 100%. So we could talk so much about all this stuff, but so Ron DeSantis said it's unfair to force a truck driver to pay a loan for someone who got a PhD in gender studies. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. Taxpayers shouldn't be footing the bill for student loan relief, and Biden's order isn't constitutional. So this is where the right is going, saying this is an unconstitutional order. It's actually delineated. By the way, you guys know how I despise Biden, but Biden is very well in his in his jurisdiction to do this. So they're saying this is unconstitutional. If anything, universities handing out worthless degrees should be on the hook. I think universities should be on the hook because they're charging too much for an education. That's why they should be on the hook. But okay, so this whole issue, Pasta, I want to ask you, where do they get this argument that a truck driver, because I've seen so many people say this, or that a ex-worker that didn't go to school, or whatever person, right, is doing like handiwork, important work, construction work, whatever the hell it is, but not like it's vocational rather than educational. It's paying for somebody who got a PhD.
What they're saying is that with student debt relief, it's okay. So this is the whole thing about who's going to pay for it kind of question, like that question, how it's kind of thrusted into certain things. What he's trying to do, first of all, he's just throwing red meat. I mean, the whole, it's funny how he picked gender studies, fam, as the, as the degree. But he's saying that with student debt relief, that everybody, tax dollars, is funding to pay for the student debt relief, that it's coming out of everybody's pocket, which is also the argument from conservatives who's saying, well, why don't I get something? I paid off my student loans, and yet it's coming out of my tax dollar, which is the whole mentality, But this is what it goes back to, who's going to pay for it. And this is important right now, because I think a lot of people get triggered from who's going to pay for it, and they look at it and saying, are you saying we can't afford it? Yeah, no, I'm saying we can afford it. But when you say who's going to pay for it, that is more for a push for transparency on how everything is going to be spent. Because we've seen our government, what they do. They throw millions or billions and trillions of dollars at NGOs, at other projects, and you don't understand how the money is spent. Let's not forget that before 9/11 happened, there was trillions of dollars missing from the Pentagon with no receipts. So when they say who's going to pay for it, that is not about saying we can't afford it. We understand how much money is spent on wars and all this other bullshit. It's saying we want transparency on how our money is going to be spent. Us, the people. It's more of a bigger thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's kind of pushed aside. So when DeSantis throws out this red meat and he goes, why does that trucker now, out of his tax dollars, have to pay for this college person to go get a degree in in gender studies? Because he's, So that's what he's saying. He's being divisive. He's pitting people against each other. That's exactly what he's doing, because he's go red team go. That's all DeSantis is. But who's going to pay for it? We just need transparency on everything.
We need to know exactly who's going to pay for it, because there's two arguments. There's the argument that the taxpayer will foot the bill always. That's a libertarian argument, and the conservative argument. I have the libertarian you like so much on here next in one of these tweets, who says, the people are going to, the taxpayers are going to end up paying. However, we're a country that in debt. We just print more money at this point. I mean, we don't have, they create money.
Okay.
They literally create money to go to give money and billions to Ukraine. So I don't understand how this argument always comes up only when it's something for people, for giving people. So at the end of the day, I have an issue with that more than anything. Should we know exactly who's going to pay for it? How is this going to be paid? Absolutely. I agree with you. Absolutely. Let's see how this is going to happen, because nobody's talking about that. And I think that would solve a lot of issues. And the reason nobody's talking about that from a political stance, like a politician or anybody like that, is because they profit off of this whole thing right now. Vote for Biden if you want, student debt forgiveness and more of that. Don't vote for Biden if you want to keep your taxes low, and if you don't want, some construction worker paying for the gender studies major. That's what they do, and they're both fundraising off of this very issue, just like they fundraise off of the abortion issue, off of the guns issue, and off of any other red button issue. This is what they do constantly, and nobody actually talks about what the actual problems are.
Yeah.
Which is.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to cut you off. Are you finished with your thought there? Because I just want to.
No, I'm fine. I'm
I got so excited when you say that, because you're right. The whole thing is who's going to pay for it always comes up when it's situations like this, when it's programs, social programs, but it never comes up for the conservatives when it's war, right? That's, you know what I'm saying? This is the first time right now we're seeing Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about the funding and the Matt Gaetz. It's like, I'm going like this because they weren't there during freaking the Iraq situation. They were all there online to cut those checks. There was no who's going to pay for it when it came to going into Afghanistan and going into Iraq. There wasn't there that at all. But that's the thing. You know, when we talk about the libertarians, they're always who's going to pay for it when it comes to war, who's going to pay for it when it comes to social programs. Right. They want to look at the transparency of it. But here's the thing, fam. Even if the money printer goes and is paying for all this stuff, they still tax us. They still take our money to balance out their monetary system in which the big corporations find ways to avoid paying taxes. So even if it's coming off the money printer, they tax us. It's like George Carlin. He says, here's the way it goes. The middle to lower class, right? You know, the low does all the works, pays all the taxes. The rich pay none of the taxes, get all the money. You know what I'm saying? So even if the money printer goes broad, they take it out of our end to balance out their system, and they're making sure they have IRS agents, even more of them, to come after it. So they are legit in their questions of saying who's going to pay for this. They want to see everything, every dollar, and they should be able to see that. We should be able to see that.
We should be able to see it. But then my counter argument to that is, yes, okay, and I agree. At the end of the day, the working class, including the middle class and the poor and everybody in between, end up paying for everything because that's the way the system is set up. Because it's the system that's the problem. It's the whole system. So my response to that, the people talking about their taxes and all that, you're mad at the wrong fucking people. You're mad at the people for begging for scraps because that's all it is. This is already interest. This is an interest that that people have already paid. So why would you be against it? I understand, but your taxes are being raised anyway. You're paying for more anyway. This government is making you pay for everything anyway. So why are you so focused on the person next to you that's like, hey, I really need help? Like, and instead, why don't you understand that the government is using this issue to pit you guys against the other? Because that's what it is at the end of the day. Why are we so focused on the taxes situation when not giving this student debt relief isn't going to make or break your tax increase? They're going to do whatever it takes to keep the people, the working people of this country, completely reliant on the government, completely reliant, and it's a bad government. Because as I said, I'm not opposed to government. I'm opposed to a tyrannical government. I'm opposed to a heavily authoritarian government, a government that is fascistic, and a government that is like essentially a corporation. And that's where we're at right now. And so I don't understand why the focus isn't on those, right? And I think a lot when it comes from politicians, it's because they know this and they're just playing the people. So there's Tom Fitton. He said the PPP loan forgiveness is part of the legislation passed by Congress. Congress has not passed the student loan forgiveness program, which means that Joe Biden's decision to spend $600 billion on one is an unlawful and unconstitutional abuse of power. So again, this is what they're doing for it. This is where they're going. So the liberals are saying, just for context, the liberals are saying that the PPP loan, the PPP loans that many politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene were forgiven entirely, right? And so they're like, well, why are you guys complaining about this then? And this is just a drop in the bucket to student debt forgiveness and blah blah blah. So they're saying that no, this is different because Biden is not doesn't have the authority. So that's what they're going with. And they're saying, we need to take this to court. Biden is doing something that he has no authority to do. So.
Yeah, well, the next shit is the bullshit ones is like, this is the, what I'm saying? It's, I mean, Jim Jordan, right? I mean, this is what you're talking about right now. This is the pitting people against each other right now. And listen, there's an argument to be made and this is not the way to make it. Like, if you want to make an argument that more of vocational jobs and other, entities should get more money and funding, from the government as well, with not just college, because that's what we need, right? We need to start, educating people on how to make shit again, make stuff over here, not just be dependent on that stuff coming on overseas. We need people who need to fix things more, those things. We need to get some form of manufacturing back here. So if you want to argue that there should be money for that and say, it should be like, I'm glad you paid off college debt. Well, Mr. President, what about the people who did pay that off? And how about some money to some vocational schools so we can all benefit together as one nation? Instead of saying, like you're saying, there is a big thing. And this seems like a controlled freaking psyop sometime, where it's just used to pit people against each other, even when it's something positive of sorts. And it's a really tinkle positive. It's not enough. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like the guy who did like 6 things wrong on his job, but he got one thing right and you still want to credit him. He's a good worker. Dude, he spilled the coffee. He didn't put the plastic thing in. He burnt the toast. He forgot the order on that table over there. He spilled the drink on that person. And no, he was late to work.
No, I was just.
Yeah, but he brought the guy a straw when he asked him for one. No.
And I was just going to say, it doesn't help that a lot of liberals are very like elitist and like, they study literally, like it comes from like the liberal arts, right? They study art and everything. And there a lot of people who support the Democratic Party, they get to that point and they get, it's completely what a liberal used to be back in the day is different than what it is now. I mean, what it's turned to is absolutely ridiculous. They rehabilitate war criminals and all this stuff. Like what a Democrat used to be, right, is different. You had a lot of people that were in the South that were Democrats. I mean, it's a completely different situation. But a lot of what's been happening now is that there's college educated people of the middle class and up tend to be Democrats, tend to be liberals. And a lot of the people who took on vocational, sort of careers tend to be more conservative now. So they're playing to their bases, right? And I think that's also a part of it too, where he gets to say this, right? You made a good living for your family. Well, Joe Biden's going to let you pay for the student loans of the wealthy. Gender studies. And they use gender studies for obvious reasons. Just hilarious. By the way, gender studies is just like studying it's basically sociology, essentially. Just the differences between the genders.
Is that her degree in gender studies?
No, I don't think so. I don't know what the hell her degree is in, but I don't think we should mock people's degrees. I mean, there's dumb degrees. Yeah, there's degrees.
At this point, all the degrees are 90% of the degrees, fam, are dumb because they can't get you a freaking job.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even about the degree as much as it is about the piece of paper, though. Like, because that matters. That piece of paper matters when you apply to certain positions. If you don't have an education, people still look at school, what school you went to, and all that. People want to say that it doesn't matter. It still matters in those terms. For me, education is still important because I believe that reading a lot of books and knowing things really helped me be where I am today. But the thing is, you don't have to rely on that anymore necessarily. You could do other things now with the internet. People are learning how to code. You can attend free classes at Harvard now via the internet. There's so many different ways to educate yourself now. But at the end of the day, it's still that piece of paper by society is still something that others look at, right? And so that is the reality. I mean, you can make money now, being a YouTube influencer, Instagram influencer and all that. But if you don't have that, then not having a degree does impact people's lives. It really does, even now. And I think that's the problem with society right now. It's like a lot of people, younger people are choosing to go to college because they don't want debt. And they're considering the military because they don't want debt. In spite of, the military.
That's been going on for a while too, that the
conscription going down.
Yeah.
I have the tweet, but this is your guy here. And I had a problem with
I want to say something first.
Yeah.
You just got to speak. So let me speak first. Okay. I want everybody to know because I might be voting for this guy for president. I might, if he runs, because I am calling it, and I've said this before, the great compromise. And I am so desperate. And I believe that a third party is needed more than ever. And I know you can probably talk my ears off to the cows come home that it might not happen, probably won't happen, whatever. I still believe in trying to fight for it because I want more than the two-party duopoly. And I'm calling my decision to do so the great compromise, because there are 4 things that we will get with Spike Cohen as president. Number 1, civil liberties and censorship, right, will fall at the wayside. He's a true libertarian when it comes to that. He believes in freedom of speech. And he also believes in number 2, freedom of the press. This guy knows about Julian Assange right away. You know what I'm saying? Like he understands whatnot. The third one is the anti-regime change mentality. Scott Horton, who's part of the Mises Caucus, whatnot. You know, this Spike Cohen, he's not an interventionist. Once again, libertarian. Ron Paul, more Ron Paul mentality of not intervening. And number 4, criminal justice and police reform. Okay, nobody hates the cops more than libertarians, fam. They want to reform the shit out of them. They want to cut their budgets. They want to freaking make laws where they can't have no-knock warrants. These guys, for a long time, if you go back and you look at old school libertarian-minded, during the Jim Crow times, they were the ones pushing against the government from stopping the arming of black citizens. When they were doing that, libertarian-minded people were pushing back and saying that's illegal. They have a right to arm themselves. And I will do that if he picked Maj Touré as his vice president. But go ahead with his tweet now. I just wanted to point that out before, because I do not agree with a lot of the economic woes and whatnot. And even though I don't completely understand Austrian economics just yet, I'm trying to learn about it. I still am not digging it right away. You know, I'm still pushing back for these other areas, but I will compromise for the 4 things we just talked about.
You mean they're trying to indoctrinate you to their
No, because
market economics?
I mean, they want me to understand it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, my friend Jeffrey P. Hurley, who's the vice chair of Nevada, and he's also the chair of Clark County. You know, I have an interview with him. He goes, there's a misconception about libertarians. They think that we just want to make freedom for our own benefit so we can go off and make money. And it's about our individualism. Our individualism is rooted in fact being good for society. We take care of oneself, our own problems, so we can be part of society. And they don't want to see anybody go poor. It's not their mission to see anybody go poor. They believe in something which some of them will refer to as compassionate capitalism. I don't agree with it, fam. They believe in removing the mechanism of government that will allow it will somehow kind of, and I don't want to misquote them, but it will somehow work itself out. But they believe the main mechanism from issues and problems is the government, and removing that and putting it back into the hands of the people will allow itself to work out naturally. I'm still not sold there. I'm sold on the other 4 issues. But please, let's talk about
I mean, I do think libertarians are who a lot of the left left-leaning libertarians, or libertarians that are at least anti-war and are willing to have some sort of empathy. Are people, the left, the real left, whatever, should work with, and independence and the working class could all come together, hopefully, on some of these issues. However, I just don't think the mechanism of voting is going to get us there at this point in this country. But yes, I don't believe in compassionate capitalism, because I think it's an oxymoron. But we can just look at this tweet. I'm there with you. And agree with this whole. Look at this whole thing. Okay, so he says student loan forgiveness will not fix the student debt problem. It will force middle-class workers to subsidize universities with multi-billion-dollar endowments, cause future tuitions to rise even more, increase inflation due to more money printing. Again, I don't know what economic idea or what economic plan it's this idea that, I mean, I understand that at the end of the day, the working class is going to pay for everything in general, because that's just the way the system is set up. But we continuously give more to the wealthier classes, right? So I don't really see how this makes much of a difference, because it's so little. And future tuitions are going to rise more no matter what we do. It's not because of this. They're going to rise no matter what we do, because they've been rising since the 70s. You used to be able to go get a summer job and pay your school off. You used to be able to go and pay. My sister works 2 jobs, and she still cannot pay for her school by herself, because it is like, it is insane. It is insane how expensive it is. And it's just, she's trying not to get, any sort of a debt at all in any way, shape, or form. You can't tell me that tuitions aren't going to rise, or are going to rise just because of student debt relief. that's the thing. They will use that excuse to say that because at the end of the day, it's the system that's the problem. It's student debt forgiveness isn't going to solve the problem, which is the system. Increasing inflation due to more money printing. I mean, it's so small and minimal. I just don't really see how this is going to affect them that much in terms of inflation. Yeah, you could see a little bit, but we give so much money. We print so much money for all other things. And to libertarians' credit, they are against all the spending on war.
Against all the loopholes and the subsidies too, fam. Like, so it's like they're consistent across the board. Like, they don't want any subsidies and loopholes for the billionaires and millionaires, and they're very clear about that, as well. So I mean, it's like they're consistent. I'm not going to defend Spike's position here because, like I said, these are where I have differences with the libertarians as a whole. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to nationalize anything, and they want to leave it up to the private sector, and they believe that's the best method, and I disagree with them. Something else too, before we get off the libertarians, fam, they also need to start freaking watching who's running their goddamn Twitters and shit. The head of the New Hampshire freaking Libertarian Party had a picture of Meghan McCain crying by her dad's grave, and it said, like, greetings or holiday greetings or something like that next to it. And like, now here you got everybody like backpedaling and like, oh my God. And like, they had the situation with the Mises caucus came after, like, the Twitter said that shit about you. And I said, Jeff, who the hell is running this freaking Twitter? Like, we got to get some of this shit under control.
Well, to his credit, that's pretty funny about Meghan McCain.
It is.
He's a war criminal.
I don't know.
It's everybody's. Why? You think conservatives are gonna? The conservatives who support war are gonna join your anti-war coalition?
No.
Really?
No. I think it's more of a human respectful issue, and pissing on somebody's grave. I don't.
That's a personal thing for you, because for me, a human respect issue is being
not bombing and killing people. I get it.
Well, it's also not getting angry when somebody gets student debt relief and you already paid it off. You see, that's a human respect issue for me more than somebody crying about Meghan McCain's fucking bullshit. Like,
hey, fam, take it easy, okay?
You literally
you
said, yeah, that's you, but you use that as an example about empathy. Come on.
No.
Give me a break.
I listen, fam. I don't, I'm just saying, I'm not holding against anybody who's okay with that. Once again, I'm just saying that I wouldn't have put that out there. And being the Libertarian Party and stuff like that, as a group, putting that out there is not the most sound business decision, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I
think it's great, because I think it signifies their shift away from the conservative party, from the idea of war criminals. They're cementing that they're anti-war, and they're going to be ruthless against war criminals, perhaps.
Okay. Can you hold on 1 second, Fee? Oz, I see you there going, giving the thumbs up and hitting the home run for Team Fee over there. You might be able to hide yourself from the audience, but I'm letting them know. You're giving the Babe Ruth home run signal for Fiorella. Oz is Team Fee today.
I think Oz is Team Fee every day.
I know he is. Thanks.
Okay, so the next one, I just want to go quick because we've been talking so much.
It's a good show. It's a good topic. It's a lot of things that people need to talk about. We should have more people in on this conversation.
Okay, so Ayanna Pressley, right? And I forgot to put Kyle Kulinski and a bunch of other morons calling Dark Brandon, because now this is like, they're like, look, he's so base. This is Dark Brandon. Do marijuana next, Brandon. Like, they're like giving him so many props, right? So Ayanna Pressley said President Joe Biden just canceled student debt. No, he didn't. He didn't cancel student debt, you freaking liar. He canceled $10,000.
Yeah, I know.
That's it.
He canceled 10% of 1 year.
To every organizer who fought so hard, the victory is yours. This is going to change and save lives. Like, here we are. This is exactly why they're doing this. They're going to run on this. They're going to tell you to vote for Joe on this. They're going to tell you to vote Democrat for more of this. That's why they're doing this. Republicans will respond with their own. If you want to save your taxes and not pay for gender studies majors, vote Republican. And that's the whole game. And this is a neoliberal, late stage neoliberal, whatever. If you don't want me to say capitalism, but that's like, but this is where we are in this authoritarian, hindering on fascistic, right? Just government, because it's not going to do that. This is a dent. And again, like I said, the right is going to continue calling this a handout, and interests are going to continue rising, and the economy is going to be worsening, not because of this, but they're going to say, oh, it's Joe Biden and doing this and blah, blah, blah. So that's the game, and we're being played.
The average 4-year degree tuition is $120,000. Okay, so you got to put a lot of, like community college in there to drive down the prices that people went to the, a 4-year.
And people do go to community college to get the price down.
What I'm trying to say, it's less than 10%. It's less than 10%. Yeah. It's less than 10% of the freaking goddamn of student debt. And you're saying canceled student debt. Yeah,
and the reason some people aren't in debt or are in less debt than, how, like what Pasta said, $120,000, is because either they were very poor, they got some, or they were able to have their parents save up money, or their grandparents. Sometimes that would happen if you have a family of middle class Americans through generations. Your grandparents would pay for this, or your parents would put in money to this fund for you to go to college. So by the time you're of college age, you get to go to college and you don't have to pay. I have friends who did that. Or you're smart and you have enough scholarship money to get you to not have too much debt, but you still might have some debt even if you're smart, because there's still a lot of other things like room and board and all this stuff. So, I had most of my college paid, but in spite of that, I have student debt because of just the room and board and a bunch of other crap, the books, it's insane. And this is getting scholarships and everything, most of it paid, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's just ridiculous. Okay, so I have a question here for the MMT people, because
oh shit,
I'm not fully
You're
sold.
Just going after everybody today, huh? You're just going.
Oh yeah, I'll go after Libertarianism.
Holy soul.
But okay, so this is
I ain't even sold.
No, because we've had them on, we've heard what they say, and I believe they're correct on some instances, but I also think it's not as simplistic because of the way this government is set up. I don't believe like inflation doesn't happen, and that it's just it just doesn't matter. Okay, so this is from the MMT, right? Do you understand the difference between public money versus tax money? Words matter. Tax money is what states, local communities collect to fund their spending and what you save to pay your taxes. Public money is when the Fed creates new by spending it into existence. We used to call it printing. The federal government's budget is nothing like a household budget because you and I cannot create our own money. So, yes, but
what? They said tax money is what the state collects, right? And local, you pay federal taxes. What happens to that federal tax money, right?
Right.
Isn't it destroyed pretty much? And, new money is allocated. That's talking about the federal money or the public money. You know what I'm saying? So you still pay federal taxes. So they kind of left that out.
You still
what
pay
they're trying to say
taxes.
Is the tax dollars that the state collects, is they have incentives to collect as much tax dollars so they can spend money on whatever they need, whatever the state thinks they need and whatnot. That's where your state comes from, the tax dollars. The federal tax dollars are collected for what? To try to maintain some balance within the monetary system. So therefore, and I'm sure I'll get a call from a bunch of MMT people, but I believe when they say they're taking in federal tax dollars to destroy it, they're trying to, keep the scarcity of it, there. So therefore the dollar has value, if that makes sense. The more dollars that are out there, so destroying of money will reduce some of the money. Therefore, the money that is already there, will be, it's like scarcity. That's how how Bitcoin maintains its dollar value. And whatnot.
Right. But so the thing is, we do just print money, or we don't even print anymore. You know what I mean? Like, we just create money out of nothing. Like, at this point,
it's
right?
not
So
backed
that
by
is true.
anything.
Yeah, it's not backed by anything. So again, I go back to, well, then why are these people so outraged, about this loan? It's just another way we've created money, just like we create money for wars and for stupid things like, Elon Musk Jeff Bezos' penis rocket and a bunch of other, like, subsidizing these corporations and these billionaires. So what is the focus on just this sort of what they call handouts or welfare or whatever? We have welfare queens. We have socialist social welfare queens that are corporations. And so that's my issue with the whole thing but I also don't think inflation doesn't matter, that it's not real. I mean, I definitely think it's real. I don't think that this particular thing does cause inflation because it's such a small amount in everything that we spent. And I do think that at the end of the day, even though it's not going to be documented necessarily, we do need to see transparency. I do think at the end of the day, because of the system we're in, the working people always end up paying for everything because just the system we're in. It's not supposed to be that way, but it is that way.
Yeah. Well, also when you were talking about when you talk about the printing of money, that's, the more of it, they believe it's the more money that's printed or created electronically, the less it's worth. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. That is a fact.
That is not a fact according to a lot of the MMT people. You know what I'm saying? They don't believe necessarily inflation, or at least they haven't explained it. I think there's
it's a fact in most countries, though. Like, the United
we have
States
a global dollar too, fam. That's the problem, that they're not, and every time you go to change in your dollar for that dollar, if we went to Peru, right, and we change in our dollar for, what is it, the lira? What is it?
It's sol.
The sol.
Lira is Italy. Sol.
My bad. Yeah. See, I'm thinking Italian all the time.
Well, not anymore. Italy uses the euro. Lira is also in Turkey now. Lira.
Nice. So it's the sol, right? It's only one factor, pasta, somebody says, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's other factors. And you have to trade it in at a certain rate, what the dollar is worth. You know what I'm saying? The more you print of it, the less it's worth. And that's just, especially on a global dollar. I'm still not
on the global scale, but on the United States spending scale.
But I mean, yeah, but that's the thing. We buy products from other countries and stuff. So that those products are, they're dependent upon how much our dollar is worth, that how much we have to spend. That, if there's more of it, inflation's inevitable.
I think I think both ends are trying to just deny the existence of the other, right? Like, I do think inflation is a deal. I do think it matters. I don't think it's like you can just print endlessly.
No.
But I also think that.
Sorry, go. So I was just talking out loud. Sorry.
But I also think that they use inflation as their go-to.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't inflation, but it's not because of these issues, though. It's systemic now. Like the whole situation, the whole economic system is just not going to solve the problem, is my point, on the macro level. I always like macroeconomics better than microeconomics. Now you understand why. Anyway, Jim Banks.
If anybody says, but before we put in Jim Banks, people are saying, all right, if Catherine Austin Fitz wants to come explain her side, I'd love to have her on this show. Love to have Catherine Austin Fitz on. That's it. The other people, sorry, Beverly Couch. No. We already did that, done that, not doing it again. Sorry. Go ahead.
What?
Talking about inviting on certain MMT people. Like, no, not doing that. So.
Oh, okay. So Jim Banks said this. This is I think one of the biggest moments of 2022 where they admitted a lot of things. We've heard them admit a lot of things this year. This guy, Student loan forgiveness undermines one of our military's greatest recruitment tools at a time of
Wow.
dangerously low enlistments. I mean, this is just huge. I mean, thank you for saying the quiet part out loud. Thank you for saying what we've been saying for ever, decades. I mean, I know people in my family who joined the military because of that. I know people who join the military because of that in general. Do other people join the military for other reasons? Absolutely. But that economic concern is there in the back of the mind of middle and working class young people, because they entice you and they go to the schools and they say, hey, you don't even have to be on the battlefield. You can just, work in a hospital, and you can do this. You don't even have to be out there on the field, and we'll pay for you. We'll pay for your education, and then you get all the benefits of being, in the VA. You get the health care, you get the housing deduction to be able to buy a home. You get all of these perks. It's so enticing. You're like, yeah, if all I have to do is this for a little bit, and then I can do it. And that's how they get you. Notice they don't recruit from like Ivy League schools unless they're going to put them in the high positions of general, and you get trained to be in command. You don't get trained to be a little soldier. So what is this? This is the admission that the United States government does not give free education, because that would ruin their enlistment. That would ruin it would be a huge dent. It would provide a huge dent. More education would also give people the understanding of what the government is, what they do around the world, and who they are. So again, that would ruin their plan, the money making machine, and the machine in general, the military industrial complex that is this country. It would completely just destroy it. And they're telling you that it would destroy it. So more than ever, this is something you have to look at. For the people that talk about for me, I just don't like getting wrapped up in the economic of, this and that, because I don't believe in the economic system we're in, right? So it's hard for me to even have the conversation about economics when I don't believe in the economic system that we're living in, because I think it's all a bunch of bullshit. People get stuck in these economic arguments of this and that and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, to me, the system here is set up to create soldiers, to create these bodies, right, for kids to fight for rich men's wars. Everybody else has to keep the machine going. You can't be too educated to run the machines, just like George Carlin said. And so at the end of the day, I just don't see a way out of this economic system, is my point. I just don't see it, right? And
what Jim Banks did again, once he screwed up and told the truth. Like, come on, man. Like, guys, they're telling you, yeah, this is going to screw up our recruiting. You're like, it's better when we hold something over our citizens' heads, our young citizens' heads, like education, and make them go serve time in the military to get some. We don't want to remove that mechanism now. Who's going to fight these wars? I mean, we're showing that they're more full of shit every single day. Now we're going to remove the money incentive.
Thank you, Jim.
Fucked up.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Nope. Some of them wear green shirts. What do we got?
And the last thing, I was just commenting on why people don't care as much about the other stuff. And more so to conservatives than the libertarians, because obviously, like I said, they're more consistent about not being frugal with the money. This isn't going to solve anything, really. It's going to be a dent. It's a Band-Aid solution. This is $10,000 is literally nothing, but it's going to help some people momentarily. I think so. It's going to make people feel good that they have less of a burden on their shoulders. I would have done much more and I guess and other people would have been more pissed off, I think. If more was, both the libertarians and conservatives would have been like, what the hell are you doing? If it was like $50,000 or more. And I would have been like, okay, that's significant. It's not going to it's still not going to do that much, but it would have been something. Okay. this makes a difference. But this is just, and again, $10,000 is so like, we don't know how this is happening. We don't know how the mechanisms are, who's paying for this, how is this going to go. And until we don't know that, people are going to be making their own assumptions and, using this issue as a wedge issue. So that's that.
Yeah. That was code FIFA saying, how are you going to pay for it? She just did it. She's turning libertarian.
No, it wasn't.
Before your eyes.
Shut up.
That was code for how you going to pay for it. Oz, you want to bring me up on the screen too? Or do you want me to just talk from the shadows over here, pal? Team Fee. Like, oh my God. Like, I got a chirp from the bleachers, but Fee gets the whole screen with a pretty purple background. I got purple on my background too as well.
So why are you even on the show if it's rigged?
If it's what? I can't hear you. Sorry, I had a technical difficulty.
Why are you even going to participate if it's rigged, Pasta? Like, why?
Sorry, can't hear you. It's in my ear.
They're not going to give you power willingly, Pasta. They're not just going to let your guy win. We're past that point here. Guys, convince him. This is fucking ridiculous. God.
Do you want to read the rest?
You're optimist to a fault. I'm a realistic optimist. You're an optimist to a fault. It's one of the most endearing things about you, but it's also one of the most freaking enraging things about you. Really.
Don't. Please. Oz, if I can reach through there, I'd break your fingers. We get them out of.
All right, we got to go to the next because our team.
Are we done with this subject?
Yeah, we're done with the subject.
Guys, thank you so much.
Guys, we had a lot to say
there. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of shows. You're here with us. We are humbled that you are doing so. Do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. Go on over to Rokfin if you can, ROKFIN /.com/the Convo Couch. Remember, we also have a Give Send Go, givesendgo.com/support the Convo Couch. I'll put that link up there as well. We're getting ready to go to Brazil. We got that going on. If you don't know, on September 10th, I will be speaking at Election Integrity Activists Convention in Florida, hosted by Lara Logan, with Tim Canova as one of the keynote speakers. And I'm going to be explaining why it's important, along with the 6 principles of voting, but why it's important to go out and participate in our practice, which is supposed to choose our democracy and not let them take it away from us. Okay. Game.film, thank you so much for the Super Ray contribution. Thanks for keeping us informed. Have a great weekend, fam. Game.film, thank you so much. Thank you for your longtime support. We really appreciate it. All these Super Rays.
Thank you, fam.
Really helped us out. Thank you so much, guys. We love doing what we do, and it's because of you, our audience. Tuition forgiveness would only count as adding money to the economy if the payments hadn't been frozen for 2 years already. Thank you, Abdul Jafari. That is so true. Vidal Gomez Jr., thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Thank you to all our patrons out there. Thanks for all the people who left money on the Give, Send, Go. Thank you to all the people who left a little Scotto, fam, the color of green like my shirt, in our PayPal as well. And now, AREM, thank you so much. AREM, we love you. It's true. Some conversations cannot be properly had because of the framing and common thinking is all wrong. Like, how does one argue how George W. Bush won the 2000 and 2004 presidential elections without prefacing the discussion with the fact that George W. Bush is a twice sitting, never elected U.S. president?
Right. But don't worry, this time.
No. What happens is now people are understanding. They're educated on how George Bush stole those elections, how he stole it in 2004, how he stole it in 2000. They're understanding. They're seeing all the tricks of the trade. The more they commit the crimes, the more trail they lead, the more we can call them on it, and more chances that we, the people, can take it back into control and understand that this is the greatest scam there is. This one. This is bigger than any other scam because we see it done in small countries, in third world countries. We see it done effectively, fast, free, transparent, and trackable. We could do this, and we got to demand it. So we got to leave our footprints all over the place and let them continue to cheat. They'll get caught. It will crumble. We don't know how the wall is going to break. So we got to go all avenues. I don't disagree with Fee's doing. I don't disagree with Steve's doing. I'm just doing things that I think can be done, and I'm going to be singing my word because I believe that this is the only way we get things fixed is through fair elections. But that's just my personal opinions. And
it's just my personal opinion.
Imran
right
Khan
Your
agrees with.
personal.
So let's talk about this. So
Imran Khan, oh my God, stop using Imran Khan as an excuse to visit a
Imran
different country.
Khan, the only way to true national sovereignty is through free, fair, transparent elections, fam. That's
Now the country that literally rigged
the will of the
elections
people.
and was behind cooing him. You think the country that was behind, one of the main orchestrators of his coup, is going to let you and a bunch of libertarians prove that they rigged the elections?
Colombia had had rigged elections for years. And look where they're at.
Colombians experienced violence and death from the United States from literally from themselves because of that. For decades,
they recognized the system was cheating them and they fixed it.
They do. You know what the Colombians didn't do? They didn't say, "Hey, talking about elections makes you a right winger." Now, libertarians are basically right wingers. You're all right wingers. They're just gonna just completely dismiss everything like they're doing right now, because as long as the right continues saying that Hugo Chavez came back from the dead and rigged the elections and that China is putting bamboo paper, nobody's going to take them seriously. And as long as the left doesn't recognize that the elections aren't fair, you need everybody to recognize it, not just individual.
I think more people are recognizing it. It's just that they're not allowed to say it online, and you can't hear the fact that you can't hear the roars out there. You can't hear it, but I believe the roars out there. First of all, we understood that there was people that we met, a lot of the people who follow Tulsi Gabbard, and we learned this in New Hampshire. When I asked them all, and I asked about 10 people why they went with Tulsi Gabbard, 3 of them were for elections, for the election situation alone, for what happened with Bruce Spiva and the Bernie Sanders lawsuit, and the fact that he didn't stand up and fight. They were like, screw you, we're out. And that's why they went over there, because they went with the only Democrat who drafted legislation that was going to go and try to make our elections more transparent. Even mentioning the term open source at that time was so taboo, and she did it in that bill. And it was a short, easy bill to read. So I believe there is a silent roar that's getting louder and louder and louder. There are election integrity groups, and yeah, they are now consumed by a lot of Donald Trump people because he was the one they felt that he got screwed, and that's why they're there. But it's going to swing back around. It was mainly a progressive issue back in the days. Democrats had picked it up at one point because they were complaining about it all the time, and they got clicks and they got money off it. So even though that we see a small amount of people that are okay, that there's a small amount of people out there from reading the Time Life magazine that don't care that it was maybe possibly, if it was cheated, they don't care.
That's what I'm saying.
They thought that the ends justified the mean, right? But there's a lot of people who were silent, who weren't sure about it, who are now thinking about it and going, wait a second, maybe we need to make change here. And they're there. We just don't hear their roar. And I'm going to help facilitate that roar, and we'll get this right. We can get this straight and get it right in all these other countries. We can get it right here
Jesus
in the US today.
All right.
Fighting for
all right. I can't.
You had enough.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah, this is too nauseatingly optimistic to a fault. It's just not realistic. Anyway, can we talk about the subject that we're supposed to talk about?
Okay. You ever see those memes? Right now, I got a black eye and I got bloody nose and lips over here. Fam, your man Zuck admits on Facebook, okay? Zuck from Facebook admits that Meta took orders from the FBI to censor misinformation. Misinformation is code for information early. Oz, you want to try that? The thing? What do you got? So that's it. So let's get to it. Yeah. Let's just roll to the clip. And I mean, I got a ton of notes. I want to talk about this. Yeah, let's get into it. And here it is. Here's Meta on Joe.
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like, there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
We have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. Basically, the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team. It was like, hey, just so you know, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely.
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
That's another way of saying, yes, it did fit the pattern. I mean, yes, it was that story. I mean, he's beating around the bush over there and still goes on there and says, hey, the credible freaking source, there's still a sense of credibility, kind of justifying his fascistic censor move. And FBI is a government entity, and if you're colluding with the government, then you have to abide by all the laws too as well, freedom of speech, freedom of press. Then you're not allowed to do any of that bullshit. You're not a private company as is, and we can argue whether or not these companies are private companies or not. Now, I just want to point out, now we're on this thing, why this was done, okay? I do believe when Whitney Webb talks about, just like the FBI raid and just like Zuck over here, he is trying to, or he's part of trying, the ruling class, and I call them the masters of the universe, was kind of joking around about that today. The predator class is trying to find a way to arouse and drive, I think, the patriot crowd into some form of what they thought would happen on January 6th into an actual event like that. They're trying to create some response from people by saying, look what's going on. And now here's another situation where, one of the most hated guys from the Patriots is Zuckerberg. He's probably in the top 3, right? I think Gates would be number 1, Fauci might be number 2, or Fauci might be number 1, Gates is number 2. But Zuckerberg would come in there in a nice solid 3, especially when it comes to elections, because that's what this is about right here. This was before the election. We had the Time Life magazine, which pretty much said the masters in the universe met together in Zuckerberg's house. I think he made veggie lasagna that night for him, I'm not sure, or wherever they were at. And he talked about helping, save democracy of sorts, which is just another way of code of saying, I don't want to say it on YouTube, but you know what I mean, right? About what's going on with the elections. So I think at the center of everything, this is to elicit a response in what they want to happen, that being the ruling class. Go ahead, fam.
Yeah, but I think it's also the recently this story came out that they admitted that the United States has been doing propaganda, right? That it wasn't Russians this time. That was this mainstream media story that the United States was caught doing propaganda, and it was put out on mainstream media.
Yeah.
And it was this whole thing. And a lot of people were like, oh, wow, it's the United States is I think it was Facebook that did it, right? And the United States was.
I think it was a couple of platforms. I think Twitter was involved too as well, right? Or it was
it was a lot of these meta platforms, which is why I think he's on this show right now. But a lot of people were like, oh, wow, they're finally trying to be transparent because they have to, blah, blah, blah. No, they're giving you a little bit of this to say, hey, we're being transparent. You can trust us. Now, they're giving you a breadcrumb to say, okay, here we go. You guys can trust us because we're transparent. See, we're actually not blaming the Russians this time. We're blaming the West and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's a way to bring people in and to co-opt the message into the mainstream to say, oh, see, like they admitted that it's not just the Russians. I don't think it's genuine. I think they do this to distract and to make sure that you don't continue focusing on how they lie every single time about everything. So they can always go back and say, oh, we admitted this. And I also do think that in other aspects, by labeling everybody as, an agent of terror or whatever, depending on what they believe in, I think that is trying to create a civil war because people are more divided than ever. You have the Democrats, Republicans, the left, and the right, and then you have this going back and forth. So yeah, they want people to literally go and actually push for a civil war. Do what wasn't completed on January 6th, because January 6th wasn't a coup. We all know this. It was FBI led. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you there, Pasta.
Well, before we get to Joe Rogan, let's stay on Zuckerberg's hypocrisy, because I mean, here he is, and this is from Spiro Ghost, the underscore. About Zuckerberg admitting back in 2020 how the FBI relationship went both ways, specifically referencing the Governor Whitmer kidnapping case plot, which we know how many of those suspects were with the FBI again. Most of them, to the point where the judge is like, I can't start charging anybody here because the majority of you are FBI agents. Take a look at this really quick. Is there a video? Okay, because I didn't put the link in there. That's why.
Oh.
Study shows from Kyle Anzalone, misinformation campaign pushing pro-American narratives on Twitter and Facebook. It's something we talked about somewhat. This was written by Kyle Anzalone from Anti-War and the Libertarian Institute. The Stanford Internet Observatory released a study showing a series of covert campaigns over a period of almost 5 years that pushed pro-Western misinformation on Twitter, Facebook, and 5 other social media platforms. The operations target people living in Central Asia and the Middle East. An investigation was launched after Twitter and Meta turned over the data on 2 overlapping accounts from the Stanford Internet Observatory. The accounts were removed in July and August for violating terms of service, including platform manipulation and inauthentic behavior. The fake accounts deployed misinformation to set narratives supporting Western geopolitical goals. Next slide. According to the executive summary, our joint investigation found an interconnected web of accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and 5 other social media platforms that use deceptive tactics to promote pro-Western narratives in the Middle East and Central Asia. It continues the platform databases to appear to cover a series of covert campaigns over a period of almost 5 years rather than the original operation. One operation by the covert accounts was directed at Central Asia. A narrative that fake accounts tried to spread was painting Russia as a looming enemy. Assets in the group consistently portrayed Russia as a threat to Central Asia. A reoccurring narrative claimed that Russia is abusing Russia-Central Asian partnerships, namely the CSTO, to extract one-sided benefits. The assets also said Central Asian countries must leave these organizations if they wish to retake their full sovereignty from Russia, fam. So, I mean, you can see the hypocrisy, how one-sided it is. This is 5 years of covert actions right now, right? Pushing, talking about this, you want to come here and the FBI is going to go, okay, we have to remove this right away before you even get started. But yet they're running operations over here for 5 fucking years. It just seems so one-sided, and it seems so hypocritical right now, especially when it comes to what's going on in big tech, what's going on in Twitter, what's going on in Facebook right now. The fact that he was able to go out there and admit that the FBI told him, watch these stories there, don't do that. And he was going to say, well, it wasn't the story in particular. No, the FBI and big tech, they've been working together for quite some time, right? And this is nothing new. It's just another tool they have. We can talk about where the internet came
Yeah.
from altogether. I mean, Jesus Christmas, it came from DARPA, for crying out loud. So it always seemed one-sided and whatnot. So that's
yeah, and
go ahead.
I was just going to say the reason that they're doing that is, once again, like they can say, oh yes, so a lot of people are getting carried away and not trusting in these institutions, so let's have some transparency. And that's what one of the guests mentioned. I disagreed with them, but that's what it was their opinion. They thought, like, the reason they're doing this is because the United States is finally giving some transparency. No, they're not. They're giving the idea of a transparency. They're not going to give you transparency without a reason to give you transparency in an age where they're literally labeling everybody some sort of domestic terrorist. You have to understand and think as to why they're being now transparent about this specific issue. Is, well, perhaps now you can come back and trust in these institutions. Perhaps we can find ways to get you to believe that we're being transparent and that make you feel like you're making some sort of change. But really, we're going to go behind your back and we're going to continue doing this, what we've been doing for decades, and continue lying to you. And I think that's just another way to co-opt the message of the truth teller, the exposer, to co-opt these messages. Because as we talked about before, Pasta, now the mainstream narrative is shifting. It's not about, regurgitating what the mainstream wants. It's kind of opposing it. And these people are seeing where that's going. And they're like, oh shit, like, we got to get on top of this. We got to get forward. And that's why you have so much co-option and so many things going on too.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the second part of this, I think, which a lot of people have been talking about right now, and has been, we've been having these conversations, as far as what, independent media does, as far as calling out, I don't want to say the enemy, right? In some situations, I think they're going to just calling out somebody for being a piece of shit or misleading people, right? But, this whole kind of gotcha game that's going out there, like, oh, this person's that, oh, this person's this, that person's that. And we kind of enter into these parameters that we get so judgmental that we have no friends left at the end of the day. Like, everybody, I mean, I get the whole mentality that everybody's a suspect for what they're trying to do, whether they be a person trying to herd people into like the Democratic Party, which, Bernie Sanders, a lot of people were saying beforehand, like, that guy's going to be a sheep. Watch, at the end of the day, he'll let you down. You'll see what's going on. And what happened, like, his true colors exposed. I think it's, he is that person to kind of to lead people into the abyss, right? Into back into revolution, that we talked back into the same spot, which they ended up into, and we don't have a real break from the system on what's going on. I think today in the morning show today, what was misunderstood is that Steve was talking about the landscape, not the person. And where I misunderstood and where I misspoke, or I didn't get out there, and this is something I want to get out there right now, it's not Joe Rogan that I'm standing up for, okay? It's Joe's message, right? That's the thing to me that I want to kind of highlight and talk, because I believe, the mainstream media or the corporate media, whatever you want to call it right now, and I get it, things evolve, right? We used to call ourselves progressive. It's so co-opted right now. We don't call ourselves progressive anymore. What was mainstream media last year, it might be different than mainstream media this year. I want to distinguish between the two. Corporate media, which it's one job. Corporate media's job is to do one thing more than anything. Its message is to divide. Red team, blue team. You go on MSNBC, you go on CNN, they're pointing the finger at the neighbor. It's the Trumper, it's the domestic terrorist, he's the Nazi. That is the problem right there. Never pointing upstairs to government, but pointing to each other. You go on, Fox News, these radical leftists, I'm saying, these Marxists, these gender people, I'm saying, they whatever they say about the left over there, it's once again, who's the problem? It's your neighbor. Joe has never had that message. Joe's message has always been, and this is something I've talked about, I'm saying before, like, there's two videos. I don't watch a lot of Joe Rogan, guys. There's two videos out there. One of them I couldn't find, but there's two videos out there which really say, and in essence, what's going on, about what his message is. And that message is that, we're only human, right? And we give each other shit all the time. He said this before, he found his way about, like, you don't have your shit together. I don't have my shit. We don't have shit together. When I heard Joe Rogan say that to me, I was already at a time when I was so geared up starting this, fam, and I looked at everybody that opposing to me like horns to them. You know what I'm saying? And I looked at everyday normal people who had a different opinion than mine, that it was like horns. But when I heard that message from him, and it's a message he adopted through some form of individual sovereignty when he was a very, what's the word? Low self-esteem kid, didn't really think he can accomplish anything. And he found something within his own individual sovereignty, which really was more about him being part of society. You know what I'm saying? That's the message that I think that is so important, because if the message for is everyone to divide people, right, from the mainstream media, how could we say that this person is so in question right over here that he's part of this whole cabal or whatnot, when his message, and I'm just trying to promote his message, is that we're only human, right? At the end of the day, his message to me is that your neighbor is not your problem. The assholes upstairs are the problem. Now, he might be a little bit politically ignorant. He might be catching up. He might not be, he's definitely not where we are in a political sense. He might be learning the way. But despite looking at the landscape, saying we have to be very aware of the landscape, because we have to look at every single situation. We don't want to be led down a wrong path, right? And the ultimate message is we have to save ourselves. But we are a nation of leaders. There's always people leading, there's people following. And if Joe's message gets out to so many more people about the way we just don't give each other shit, that we understand that we're humans, that we love each other, that's a positive message. And that's a positive message I think that Russell Brand has also put out there, So what I'm trying to say, and what makes a person, corrupted, fam, right? Like now would be the Andrew Tate thing, right? Now, I'm not going to go out there and endorse Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate to me is
we not talk about that guy?
No,
I'm just so done with this whole.
Yeah, like but the whole thing is like, oh, his dad was CIA, so then he's CIA. Do we say that about Max Blumenthal for his parents? His dad worked for the Clintons. Does that mean he works for the Clintons? You know what I'm saying? That to me, I don't know, and I'm only saying that because I have a picture with AOC, right? You have a picture with AOC. I mean, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people point to Russell Brand and that picture with him and a globalist and say, look at that. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is that no matter what, you're going to have to, and I understand that the money aspect might come from there. And people say, well, look at the money he's making. Okay, well, look at the money Jimmy Dore's making, right? Well, I don't know his figures and stuff like that. But if you watch his live streams, you see he's making a few bucks. Does he work for YouTube? Does he work for Susan Wojcicki? No, he has to operate. And this is what Joe has to do too as well. And once again, I'm not saying that Joe's intentions are positive or negative. You know what I'm saying? I don't know for sure. I question him taking that interview with Zuckerberg, because I think for him taking that interview with Zuckerberg, he was providing the perfect opportunity for all the patriots out there to know that Meta was working with the FBI to suppress your guys' information before the election. To me, it seems like the perfect place if you really want to stir up some shit, right? So the message is what's most important, is what I'm trying to say at the end of the day. And Joe's message, but we have to operate in these spaces. We have to operate with YouTube or whatever. It's like the Last American Vagabond. When he gets taken down, he'll go over here, over there. Why? Because it's important to get your message out there. It's important to do that. So if that means you have to operate inside enemy territory, then you got to operate inside enemy territory. So that's why when it comes to Joe, I'm like not all there to think that he's either he might be more of a useful idiot, but I think his message is what.
Sam, I'm confused as to what we're talking about here. Like, what is the situation you're trying to discuss?
A lot of people, a lot of people will say that Joe is co-opted. We talked about this beforehand. You know what I'm saying? Like, the money is a situation where Joe might be, a sense of a co-opted type of person. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know what I'm saying?
So is there a video you want to watch?
Well, the video I put up here is the other day when we had AM Wake Up, when it just talked about individual sovereignty. We don't have to go to that video.
Today? Oh, okay.
No, this is from the other day. I was going to show him a message about individual sovereignty, in which Joe Rogan would talk about. We'll play the next videos over there and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is that the reason why I think a lot of people that it's possible for people to slip through the cracks. Joe was a useful idiot when he was the host of Fear Factor, because Fear Factor was part of the distracting, right? It's like, instead of understanding what a Sunni or a Shiite is in Iraq what's really going on in Afghanistan. I'd rather watch a TV show that's going to see people eating bugs or swimming with scorpions, whatever like that. So it was a big distraction. You know what I'm saying? Now, as he's doing a show, when he's became so popular, now as he's evolving supposedly and he's putting out these issues, a lot of people are saying, because who he gets his money from and where he gets his money, that he's somewhat of a tainted character or he is co-opted.
Okay, so I want to watch this video, but right away, is my mechanism to understanding how somebody is going to function for politicians is their funding. It's going to be the same thing for media, for journalists, for anybody. I'm not going to make exceptions just because I like the guy. You know what I mean? Like his funding is questionable at best. And I do think there's been a shift after he was forced to go off YouTube and go on Spotify in the things he has covered. He wouldn't ever get an interview with Mark Zuckerberg if there weren't parameters made as to how that interview was going to be conducted. Let's be real about that. That wouldn't ever happen. You wouldn't have somebody that's truly oppositional be able to give an interview to Mark Zuckerberg. This is a reason why people like Kim Iverson weren't allowed to talk to Anthony Fauci. That's just the way it is. That's not saying that Joe Rogan, the person, is a bad person, or that Joe Rogan, the person, isn't genuine about what he believes. And you're right, he's literally operating in the system that we're in. Do I think he is really aware of the working people's conditions? No, because he's a rich podcaster. And at the end of the day, the more wealthier you are, and this goes for everybody, the less in tune you are with the pulse of the people of the world. If he was inviting people who are like working class people and was talking about their issues, I would probably have a different opinion. But it's, mostly celebrities or people that have some sort of political
working
power.
class comedians.
Appreciate his. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know of many working class comedians he's invited, but the reality is, I think you say you're not standing up for him, but it kind of comes off like that. And I think you just like his message a lot. And it's the message.
Yeah,
but,
you know what I'm saying? Look, I'm
he's also a brand. He's also a brand. He's also a person with a brand and with all of this. And like, I understand, like a lot of people, like I'm not faulting him for that. And I do think he has good intentions, or at the very least he did. I don't think he's like evil. And I haven't seen that from him, But I also think like you can't ignore the money situation if you're going to go and criticize, the Squad or ex-politician. Obviously, he's not a politician with power, but he does have some power in terms of his audience and in terms of how many people listen to him. And I don't feel like he pushes back as much anymore in the interviews he has. And I'm not a habitual watcher, but other people who I know who are habitual watchers have noticed that. And I do think it's not necessarily him like being co-opted as much as him like having to work with the parameters that his sponsors or whoever is giving him money forces him to work. And he can choose not to do that. He can choose to literally go his own way. He would literally be successful. But for some reason, he's still choosing to do that. And so that's something I'm always going to have in the back of my mind as to why that is. Because if I had that much money and that much power and an audience that I knew that I could do this on my own and not rely on these people, I would do that. And I wonder why he isn't. And that just makes me question a lot of things. I don't think having a picture next to somebody, like I said, makes you a sellout. I don't even think bringing Andrew Tate into this conversation is part of it, because he was boasting about how his dad was CIA. He boasts about a lot of things about the intelligence community. I don't think he should be banned, but at the same time, this putting him on a pedestal that I've seen some people on the left, on the Pat Sock left, is really stupid. And I think, I
always been a dick. Sort of
it's
like why they.
Yeah, I don't care if he's a dick. It's wrong to take him off the air, but I don't have to make a freaking martyr of the guy and pretend he's some sort of, deity of sorts. And so for Joe Rogan, like I don't have the sentiment that he is like this into this instinct that he's some sort of bad person in any way, shape, or form. And I appreciate the conversations he has put out in the mainstream. You can't say he hasn't done that. You can't say he hasn't put out these important conversations that have made people question things. When he did that Bernie interview, when he did a bunch of other things that really sort of like brought these ideas into the mainstream. But the unfortunate problem is that the way he's done this is always, we're all going to, the establishment will always find ways to try to co-opt whoever is successful in this, right? That doesn't mean that that person is doing this on purpose. They're just responding to the medium that they're in. And I think the medium he's in and he's choosing to be in is the sponsorship and stuff. I mean, I think that's, again, he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to do that.
So a joke was made this morning that you just want to get on Joe Rogan. And I said this, I want to get on Joe Rogan. I want to get on Jimmy Dore. I want to get on Tim Pool. I want to get on as many people as possible, regardless of my personal feelings or not. If I have a big platform where I can get my message, which I think is really important about out there, I'm going to do it. That's why I took the interview with the Business Insider. Now, there's some things I could have done better in the Business Insider when I did the interview, and you told me about it after, and you're very right. But once again, I will take the platform where there's a lot of people if I can move people or get people to see or open their eyes to something. And when I do talk about Joe's message, which, you know what I'm saying, I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, we say this all the time. We're not a white belt class, right? But most of the people are white belts out there, right? We just have to realize that, especially when it comes to a political and social field. That's the way it is. Right. Everything's consumed over here. So when Joe does have messages like this, I believe they're effective. And for me, they're a direct push off of what the mainstream media is trying to do, which is divide, divide, divide. This is more of like, let's accept each other and understand and come together. And this is something that is very powerful. And when you have 5 times the audience of the number one show out there, you know what I'm saying? It makes me question is why would the elites or the ruling class allow this person to push this type of narrative? Let's take a look.
It's like I see a lot of people online talking about this immigrant issue, and they either don't have kids or they don't think it could happen to their kids. Their idea is, hey, shouldn't have fucking come over here. You get those kind of people. Broke the law. Shouldn't have fucking come over here if your kid, you didn't want to get your kid separated. If you were in the presence of a woman who came over here from Guatemala and she's poor and she's starving and they're taking her baby away and she's wailing and screaming from a primal place in her DNA that the one thing she loves more than anything is being taken away. A baby. Yeah. If that doesn't freak you the fuck out, you're not a part of the team, man. You're missing it. You're missing it. What are we here for? We're here for 100 years of whatever. That's what we're here for. If you want to spend 100 years saying, hey, you shouldn't have fucking broke the law, I don't want you on the team. You're an asshole, right? And I don't give a fuck if you're right or left. I don't care if you're religious or I don't care if you're an atheist. If that's what you support, you're an asshole. And we don't want you on our team. Okay? But if you agree with certain economic policies that I don't agree with, and we could have a discussion about it, we could figure out why you agree, and we could figure out why people are allowing all of this money to get into politics. Why are we allowing all these special interest groups and lobbyists to interfere with our laws and influence our politicians and create all this shit that we don't want? Well, here's the number one reason. You can't just vote online. You can't just vote. It's not one person, one vote. Right. It's the Electoral College, and there's a lot of checks and balances that are in place. That's all wonderful and groovy, but it's not giving the trust to the people. Right. The trust to the people that they're informed, that they can make their own decisions, that more people should be able to make these decisions. But they're happening now. That 28-year-old girl who won in New York, 28-year-old Democratic socialists, or they don't think.
Yeah. See, and it goes into the whole, once again, it shows the naivety. Well, it was when AOC got elected, and that was right when AOC got elected. So
2018. But I agree, Pasta. As I said, there has been a shift. That's all. There has definitely been a shift as to what he's been covering. And again, you're right. Why would the establishment, you said it yourself, why would they allow a person like this out there without?
Because my argument is that some people will slip through the cracks, that they can't control it all that much. He was a useful idiot. He was never in politics. They didn't think that he would rise to the level he would. And now that he's there, maybe he's out of control and they're just trying to do whatever they can to curtail him and keep his message suppressed. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know where he is in his mind space, but once again, his message, you know what I'm saying? And that message over there is so important because who's he speaking to? There's a lot of, when people said he was alt-right, it's because most of his viewers were conservative and alt-right, I think. You know what I'm saying? Not him. Yeah. Not him, because he just talked from the human element. And he would even talk about, the financial part, which you're not allowed to talk about. And he's talking about it. Now, I don't know if it is controlled use of information, you know what I'm saying, all that stuff or whatever's there. But
I don't think so. I don't think that is. I don't think he is. I mean, in those terms, I just think like he is in the sense of like now his message is being hijacked by the mainstream to push this sort of opposing view, but it's not actually going to be oppositional enough to the establishment. I don't think he is as a person. I mean, I genuinely haven't seen that from him. But what I do think is like now the Spotify thing and the sponsorship really puts like a hold on as to what he can or cannot do, how much he can or cannot push back. The fact that he gets this guest on tells me that he is safe because, again, Mark Zuckerberg is never going to go on with somebody that can actually challenge and oppose him. There was no challenging or opposition in any of that. And yeah.
See, the thing is that, look, I remember a debate between Tim Canova and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Debbie started speaking at one point, and Tim just shut up. And he had this look on his face. If a person's going to hang themselves, let them hang themselves. You don't interfere with allowing them to spill the beans. You let them spill the beans, and you just sit back and you let them do that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he
wasn't spilling the beans. He was giving
Zuckerberg?
Political. Yeah.
Zuckerberg was saying that he was told by the FBI not to cover a story. And whether we believe that or not, because we're in this thing, a lot of people in the mainstream never believed that. They would never have believed that to be true until that was said. Now they know.
But he was whitewashing the whole thing. He was whitewashing the whole thing the entire time. It's just not, it's one example. It's not the first example.
Yeah, okay.
There are other examples. I'm not neither here or there with this whole issue. I think there are more important things to talk about than how one feels about Joe Rogan, to be honest. But at the same time, I mean, I do think his podcast has been, it's been okay. It's been eye-opening for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people really resonate with that kind of style. And I don't see any harm that did to a lot of people. I actually think it helped a lot of people see things and come to an understanding. And what I don't like about anybody is the cult of personality and this deity that they create out of people, as if there's somebody that can do no wrong, as if they should have a shrine of them at their home. That people do that about everybody, and it's really obnoxious, and I don't like it. I don't like it when people do that about us. I don't like it when they create and put people on a pedestal, because we're all human beings and we're all not perfect. That's my whole thing. We're not perfect. And I don't think this guy is evil. I just do think like he's working with a system that is going to tell him, that is going to censor him. And he allowed it. The moment he took down those videos and he allowed that censorship, absolutely. I think to me, that was a shift that signaled something different to me is happening. I don't see that same, I don't think that Joe Rogan before that is the same Joe Rogan now in terms of his show, in terms of his funding. And I think not seeing that is very naive, because it's like, well, it's obviously going to affect the money situation, is always going to affect the sponsorship, is always going to impact him, impact somebody, right? If you are sponsored by somebody that says, hey, you can't say anything negative about Israel, that you can sort of, go around here and go around there. But the fucking moment you accept that money, you can't say something negative about Israel. Then that's the way things are. And so that we've even seen Rumble start censoring people. I mean, this is the reality. There's, I just don't think anybody is beyond criticism. But do I think his whole message this whole time has been entirely just a CIA op or an establishment op to have the establishment speak through him? No, I think he had a genuine podcast where he was talking to people about how he genuinely felt. And I think now I think that's a little bit different when there's money in between, when there's this whole other situation in between. It's honestly going to put distrust in a lot of people. And I just haven't seen the adversarial effect he had before the COVID stuff, essentially. It was all about the COVID stuff, like when that started happening.
Oz, go to 32 and just play that clip real quick. I just want to play this on the way out, fam, because this is something that was said the other day by Ian Davis too, as well, because I want to, we talk about it all the time that, you can't be a part of fixing society until you understand that you need to fix yourself. And, a lot of the, what happens in society will come from how a person fixes themselves. Saw this article the other day, said 50% of all college students have some form of a mental illness. And it just made me really sad of the poisoning from the masters of the universe on our food, on our children's brains, and where we're at now. But just wanted to play this real quick clip because Joe did talk about individual sovereignty of sorts.
I mean, I think what we often are faced with in terms of and certainly when we talk about individual sovereignty.
Are we coming back in after this?
Individual sovereignty as if that makes you separate.
Okay.
But,
and after that,
it's not. Individual sovereignty is being able to commit voluntarily to whatever collective endeavor you support. Mm-hmm. Because and you can do that because you are doing it of your own free will. You're not coerced into doing it. So that's the point of individual sovereignty. It's not about living in an isolated bubble. It is the opposite, in fact. It is about taking responsibility as an individual for everything. So you're no longer turning to some other organization to grow your food for you, to organize to keep the streets clean, to make sure that there's a road going to people that need one. You have to take responsibility. And so it does come down to the individual, which is a change of mindset entirely. But then if we all equally assume mutual responsibility for everything and then act together collectively because we freely commit to doing it, we can do anything. I mean, we already as a species have achieved amazing things without anybody telling us what to do. Nobody, I mean, 90% of what we do now, nobody tells us what to do. We do it because it's in our self-interest perhaps, but we do it because we freely commit to it. And anything that you freely commit to, you're going to be more likely to want to succeed. So I think that's where we get confused about individual sovereignty. It's not isolation, it's cooperation.
There you go. Bam, that's it for today. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go to Rumble tonight, War Odyssey, go to RT Live. Check out Fee on the news decks today. Arthur Carter, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. I support the Convo Couch. Arthur Carter, we support you. Guys, remember, you can go to givesendgo.com/support the Convo Couch. We do have a Patreon. We have a Rokfin. We have a YouTube. Make sure you subscribe for all of them. You can check Fiorella out on her Twitter or Pasta at my Twitter. We also have a Convo Couch Twitter for Pasta Jardula.
And Fiorella.
Oz on those ones and twos, fam.
I'm out.
Have a great weekend.